Hello, everyone. We are about to get started. Ooh, that shocked me. And I want to do go. All right. Jill, I'm going to bring you up on the other one if you want. All right. How does everything look, Jill?
Looks good. Looks good.
Looks good. Looks good. Let's get started. Kind of a bit of a new format. According to the Daily Beast, MAGA supporters are outraged that Tom Hanks went on SNL to play a racist MAGA supporter. They are outraged. Apparently, their performance left them wanting. One Trump supporter was quoted as saying, "If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself." So that is Tom Hanks on SNL. Elon Musk's daughter says she found out about her new half-sibling on Reddit. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Apparently, it's possible. We don't know if it's true, but Elon may be a father to a 13th child. Conservative commentator Ashley St. Clair, and by conservative, I mean she wrote for the Babylon Bee, which is, I'm not sure if it's satire or if they believe. Anyway, she came out and posted that 5 months ago she gave birth to Elon's child. And, you know, we all know Elon has been talking about declining birth rates around the world leading to mass extinctions. Did I say that right? Extinctions? So he's certainly doing his part to prevent that. Apparently he thinks if you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself as well. That'll be an interesting development. Daniel Beatty. I don't know if you guys have heard about Daniel Beatty. Daniel Beatty just joined the State Department. He's right here. Oh, right there to my right. Daniel Beatty was fired from the Biden administration working in the State Department for attending a rally with white nationalists. He has since been rehired by the Trump administration. He put out a tweet that says competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Isn't that another way of saying if you want something done right, do it yourself? Isn't it? Seems to be a theme here, folks. Yeah, it's not a cult. It's not a cult. Not at all. Oil is up today about 1%, $71, on news that OPEC may delay their planned April oil production increases. These oil production increases are not associated with Donald Trump. These are oil production increases that are meant to restore production cuts from 3 years ago. They've been planning to restore these production cuts for the last 3 years, and every time we get up to it, they put it off a little longer. So basically, OPEC is saying we're still not restoring production cuts, and that's put a little upward pressure on oil prices today. Natural gas prices have fallen off a little bit. Not really any news there. It's just a product of the market. How you doing today, Jill?
So I'm doing all right.
Did I throw you off guard?
Yeah, I was reading the chat. That's all. Both chats.
No, it looks pretty good. You guys want to do a little story time? I love old stories. I love telling old stories. I have a ton of them. And I thought this one, I'm going to have to put on my glasses. I don't know why. Oh, by the way, happy President's Day, everyone. I don't know how you celebrate. How do you celebrate President's Day, Jill? Do you do anything? Do you do anything?
I don't do anything.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't.
There's really no reason to celebrate it this year, right? We got a felon in chief, and
Oh, that reminds me. A bill was introduced to make Donald Trump's birthday a holiday. And it just so happens, I was doing some research last night for the show, and it just so happened, I just stumbled upon this. I literally just went to my calendar on my phone. Well, first I went and Googled his birthday. And then I went to my calendar on my phone. He was born on Flag Day. It's either June the 12th or 14th. I can't remember. But it's Flag Day. Why don't they just change the name of Flag Day? That's all they got to do. It's like the Gulf of Mexico. Just change the name of it. You don't have to pass any legislation. Just turn Flag Day into Donald Trump Day, and you're good. He can do that with an executive order, right? You know anybody born on Flag Day, Jill?
what?
You know anybody born on Flag Day?
What are we gonna have? 2 President's Days now?
I don't know. How's that microphone now?
Let me check it.
Mr. Global, I assume diesel prices will follow gas prices higher this spring. Is that a correct assumption? Yes, that is absolutely a correct assumption. 100%. 100%. How's that mic sounding now? The gas station by my house in Florida has gas at $2.95. What's going on? I don't know what's going on by your house in Florida. Is that higher or lower than normal where you live?
So there's no more loud humming on the mic, but the volume is kind of low.
All right. Well, Little adjustment there.
YouTube is a little behind, so I have to kind of wait a few seconds before I can answer you.
All right. Well, how's the sound now? Much better.
That's much better, yes.
Much better? Let's get into a little story time. I have a lot of I get a lot of support from women, which is unexpected because I talk about oil and gas. I get a lot of support from women, so I felt it was fitting on. I mean, this is really kind of the first show. We've just been playing around before now. To tell a story kind of in honor of women, since I get so much support from them. So let's go. Harry Byrne announced that he was slamming the door. He was voting against the 19th Amendment to the Constitution in the Tennessee legislature, and that should do it. That should end the long-fought war for women's suffrage in the United States by one vote. Harry was the last domino. It was incredible in a way because 70 years this had been debated and fought over, the woman's right to vote for 70 years, and it came down to one man in the Tennessee legislature, and he was a no. Most of the objectors of women's suffrage were from the South, and they claimed that allowing women the right to vote would destroy the family home, and they also claimed that if you allow women to vote, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next is we're going to allow black people to vote. They literally used not allowing black people to vote as a way to block women to vote because they were so afraid of black people voting. They couldn't let women vote because they felt like that was a step towards letting black people vote. One senator said, and I quote, "This is in the record. I warn every man here today that when the test comes, and it will come, the clamor to allow the black to vote, you senators from the South who have voted for women's rights will have started it here." Quote, finally, in 1919, after many attempts, the 19th Amendment had passed both houses of Congress, apparently, and now it was up to the states. 36 states needed to vote to pass the 19th Amendment. 35 states had ratified the amendment, and one hope remained, one last hope, and that was Tennessee. And when they came to vote, they were one vote shy. 70 years of labor by people trying to enact women's suffrage was one vote shy by a 24-year-old named Harry Byrne. Well, guess what? At the very last minute, Byrne voted the other way. It was that one man's decisive vote that gave women the right to vote forever. And what changed his mind? A letter from his mother telling him to vote yes. That's a great story. I've done that story before on TikTok. Some of you may have heard it, some of you may not. I love old stories because they always teach you a lesson. Old stories always teach you a lesson. Do you like that story, Jill?
Yes.
I do too. I do too. Francine Shannon, thank you for coming. Says male fragility. Yes. Mama knows best. Mama does know best. Absolutely. What's going on in the news today? Marco Rubio is in Saudi Arabia today, planning to meet tomorrow to discuss Ukraine. So much for Donald Trump going over there. We'll see how that works out. I don't know. I think Marco Rubio might do better than Donald Trump. Not that I'm a big Marco Rubio fan, but I'd say it could be worse. Mr. Global, I was watching your live from the other day. I believe you were talking about some refineries being shut down. What impact did Mexico buying the Deer Park refinery have? That really didn't have any impact. That really didn't have any impact. If you are on TikTok, please don't forget to like and share the live. Gift the moderator, she's here to help. Thank you all so much. Brian says, I'd say one of the most important things happening in this country today is those poor people in Kentucky. Mari asks, what is Trump and Elon fucking up today? There's no telling. It's a fluid situation. It's a fluid situation. Death toll reaches 11 in Kentucky from the flooding. Wow. As someone who has been in a flood like that killed people, I can tell you, don't fuck around with a flood. I'm telling you right now. I saw things when I was involved in a flood. I saw things I never thought I'd see that I didn't even know could happen. And that was some of the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life. I saw a giant D8 bulldozer picked up and carried about a half a mile in a flood. A D8 bulldozer is a great big piece of machinery. By the time that flood was over, they couldn't find it because it was buried in the mud all the way above the top of it. That's how bad that flood was. That happened in West Texas, and I believe 2016. I believe it was 2016. We all had to evacuate. That was wild. So don't mess around with floods, folks. You know, a lot of people don't take them seriously, but it's a bad deal. I hear Americans overseas are not receiving their Social Security checks. Well, that tracks. That kind of tracks. Did we ever get the nuclear people back? Do you know, Jill, if we ever got the nuclear people back? Or are they just like, fuck it? They just like...
They said they can't get a hold of them, and they're having a hard time. I think what's going on is their emails were the work emails, and they were locked out of that. And their phones were work phones, and they lost them, right? And you know they're watching the news, so they have to know they're looking for them. But they're probably like, yeah, fuck that.
Professor Oscar, member, thank you so much for your membership, Professor. Is it true the U.S. is going to broker a deal with Venezuela for oil? I've not heard that anywhere. A couple of people have asked me that, and I've not heard that anywhere. Donald Trump was, the one who originally sanctioned Venezuelan oil. He originally sanctioned Maduro. So if there's something happening there, Joe Biden tried to work with him and tried to make it work, and it didn't work. He gave him 6 months. I didn't agree, by the way. I didn't agree at all with what Joe Biden did. He basically let him start exporting oil again and told him he could do it for 6 months, and If he got his shit together, he would extend it beyond that point. And of course, he didn't, right? He didn't get his shit together. I didn't agree with the way that deal was made. So I don't know what Donald Trump's going to do with Maduro. You watch Maduro on TikTok? I didn't realize Maduro was on TikTok. Is he lip syncing or like what is he doing? Is he dancing to Tupac songs? What the hell is Maduro doing on TikTok? They took their phones and locked them out of their emails. It's wild to me that you fire somebody and you have no way to get a hold of them afterwards. Like, how do you not have people's contact information? How is that? Do you not have their job application? I mean, if they had a government phone or a government email, the other data would be on their job application or their resume. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I can go down to my office and I can get a hold of somebody that worked for me 5 years ago, no problem. Just right here, I don't get that.
So maybe they aren't answering their actual phones, right?
Yeah, I mean that's likely part of it. They're just not answering. You just fire these people for no reason other than you can, and you wonder why they don't call you back. Oh man, what do I know about oil walls? Oil walls? I don't. I know about oil wells. Derek says the left hand of government agency needs to talk to the right. Not so easy. Yeah. I guess it would be easy for small business to find these people. Might be a little more difficult in government, but yes, Jerome, I know about oil wells. I know about oil wells. You like that background, Snarky? Thank you. I need to do something with that picture, make it fit better. Yes, AP, Mr. Global is alive. I don't think Maduro official TikTok page just clips when he rambles on and on like someone we know here in DC. That's possible. Is it Mary or Mari? That's possible. Are we on YouTube also? Yes, I'm live streaming on YouTube right now. Is the story about Canada making a deal to sell to China true? No, it's not true. Because Canada doesn't sell anything. Canada does not sell anything. The United States does not sell anything. Justin Trudeau does not make deals. Donald Trump does not make deals. That's not a thing. Will Trump reduce inflation by producing more oil? No, he will not. That is also not a thing. Can you speak to India purchasing of cheap oil to refine and sell? How big of a deal is it? So India has been actually getting a lot of oil from Russia lately. I think they import about 5 million barrels a day, something like that. Donald Trump went over there, and then, of course, he claimed that we're going to meet all of India's needs when it comes to oil. We're going to produce it all. We're going to send it to them. India imports more oil than we export. We can't provide India with all of their oil. We send India about 500,000 barrels a day of oil. Same amount we sent them under the last Trump administration. It's been pretty consistent. We're not going to be sending India 5 million barrels of oil a day. That's also not a thing. Can you speak more about commodities that are priced locally and globally tradable? That's a great question, or PNC. It really is, because a lot of people get confused. Oil is traded on a global market and it's priced globally, right? That is not the case with natural gas, and that's not the case with gasoline. And that is because natural gas and gasoline have a ton of local markets, and it can still be traded globally. It can still be sold globally, but it has a ton of local markets, right? So the reason we export so much LNG is because they get about $12 for it in Europe, and it's worth $3 and something in the United States, right? But it's priced in the United States based on supply and demand within the United States. It's not like oil, which is priced globally, and that's the same thing with gasoline. Gasoline is mostly priced like on a per pad basis. So we have pads or districts that have been established around the country. This was established way back in the day to ensure, these districts were established to ensure that everyone had enough gasoline around the country, and that there wasn't places within the country that was hoarding stockpiles or keeping a lot of gas for themselves and leaving other parts of the country short on gas. And that occurred, I believe it was during World War II is when they established these districts. And a lot of people think it occurred during the oil embargo, but it didn't. It was during World War II. So gasoline and natural gas is both priced locally, but can easily be exported out of the country for more money. And so, that's what I'm talking about. And a lot of people get confused. I think what he's responding to a video that I did, because a lot of people think if we get more EVs on the road, that's going to drive down the price of gasoline, and that's not a thing. More EVs does not drive down the price of gasoline. If we get into a situation where we're oversupplied in gasoline in the United States because of EVs, they will simply export more of it. Natural gas is a perfect example of that. We produce significantly more natural gas than we need. We produce roughly 10 billion, 11 billion cubic feet a day of natural gas, more than we need. If we didn't export that natural gas, it wouldn't be 350, it would be like a quarter. So yeah, that's one of those things that people get confused about. And also another thing, a lot of people think that EVs are really hurting fuel demand in the United States. And if you didn't see the video I did, there's other factors that hurt fuel demand much more significantly than EVs. Yeah, so one of those things is remote work. Remote work has a much larger impact on fuel demand in the United States than EVs do. We have almost 23 million Americans that work remotely. That's a massive impact on fuel demand, right? Fuel demand in the United States peaked in 2019, right before COVID, and it never recovered after COVID because of the millions of people that started working remotely. Now, it is still increasing. So gasoline demand in the United States is still increasing from its low during COVID, but it still hasn't got back to pre-COVID levels. And that's because there's now over 22 million Americans working remotely. Another huge factor in gasoline demand is our aging society. We have a lot of very old people here who own cars but don't drive them. They've basically aged out of driving, right? We don't let them drive anymore. That is significantly more impactful to fuel demand than EVs so far, right? The third thing that is more impactful to fuel demand than EVs is inflation, high gas prices. High gas prices impact fuel demand more significantly than EVs. So there's roughly 3.5 million EVs in the United States, 288 or so million cars. In 2024, sales of EVs, while they did grow, they barely grew over 2023. They were very flat. Between 2022 and 2023, in 2023, we sold roughly 500,000 more EVs than we did in 2022. In 2024, we only sold about 100,000 more than we did in 22. So EV sales growth still exists, but the growth has flattened drastically. So EVs, while they do have an impact on gasoline demand in the United States, there's multiple other things that have a much larger impact. And that impact, a decrease in gasoline demand does not equate lower gasoline prices in any way, shape, or form. Gasoline demand is significantly higher right now in 2025 than it was in 2022. We had $5 gas in 2022 with lower gasoline demand. Companies just produce enough to keep markets balanced. If our gasoline demand drops significantly, they're not going to keep producing the same amount. And if they do keep producing the same amount, it won't be in our market. They'll send it overseas and sell it elsewhere. That's how that's going to work. So don't think that EVs or anything else of that nature is going to bring down prices, because they're not. If anything, for a period of time, we could actually see higher prices. Marge, welcome. Thank you for the question. Marge is 62 years old. I'm at risk of losing my chance to vote because I don't have a certified copy of my birth certificate. Do you know how to find it, Marge? You can typically get it from your state. I got mine from my state.
Yeah, vital statistics, if I could just say that.
Statistics.
Yes.
I can't. It's not called that in my state. It's called something else. But every state has a department for that, right? And I think, but it's going to be in the state you were born in, right? Not necessarily the state you live in. PL says, not enough oil companies to drill. That's totally ridiculous. They keep on buying each other to lower the amount of competitors in the business. Yeah, there's plenty of oil companies to drill. Rig utilization rate is currently at about 70%. It's 76% actually. Rig utilization rate is 76%. What that means is, at best, we can only increase drilling by 24%. We out of rigs. Instability is causing price increases right now. Not in fuel markets, not in gasoline. It's not really instability. We've lost 2 refineries. We've lost 400,000 barrels a day of refining capacity in the last 2 weeks, and that is the huge driver to gas prices climbing. I haven't looked at gas prices today. Probably about the same as it was yesterday. $475 rigs working in the Permian. Gas is $3.16 today, still on a national average. Same thing it was Friday. I thought you said, drill baby drill, the rigs would just sort of magically to themselves into existence. No. I never said that. How did we lose refineries? I don't think we can misplace them. No, we know where they are. One of them blew up, and the other one just closed. So... That is true, PL. When the price drops, they magically disappear. 100%. So, and another thing, a lot of people don't know this. I can tell by my chat, there's a few people in my chat that work in the industry. Over the last few years, companies have been buying drilling rigs and service rigs. They've been buying them and they've been cutting them up into little pieces. They've been buying rigs and cutting them up into little pieces. Why would a company buy rigs and cut them up into little pieces? It's so they have no competition, right? Because they are trying to eliminate their competition. So they were flush with cash. Post-COVID, they were flush with cash. There was a ton of equipment still for sale from COVID, from all of the bankruptcies and everything. And a lot of companies in the United States, they went out and they bought drilling rigs, they bought service rigs, they bought anything they could buy and they cut it up. That way it could never be used against them to compete against them anymore. Yet another reason why drill baby drill is not a thing. It physically, it cannot happen. The rigs no longer exist. There was a time when we had well over 4,000 onshore rigs in the United States. And if they weren't working, they were stacked out somewhere. Now, I think it's maybe 800 total. It's probably not even that high. They're cutting them all up. They're cutting up all the equipment so nobody can compete with them in the future. Isn't that wild? Cutting up the competition. Derek says, something I'm not clear on. If barrel price is set globally, why is Canada-supplied gas cheap for U.S. companies? Is it cheaper, better logistics, transport cost? So there's not really a thing called Canada supplied gas. When we import oil from Canada, we blend it with ours. It's a blend, right? But the reason Canadian oil is cheap is because it's trapped. It's trapped. So one of the things that drive oil prices are quality of the oil is one. You get supply and demand, of course, but then quality of the oil is one, but that's not a huge driver. One of the huge drivers is marketability. Marketability of your oil has a huge impact on the price of your oil. And when you have a very limited customer base, you have no marketability. And that is the issue with Canadian oil is, they can get about 900,000, just under 900,000 barrels a day out to the West Coast. But the rest of it all the rest of it has to come to the United States. So until they have a much larger pool of buyers, then their oil will remain cheap. And the United States has been enjoying sort of Canada's failure to broaden their customer base when it comes to their natural resources. The United States has been enjoying that by, cheap oil prices from Canada. It's one of the many reasons why in the United States, a lot of people don't think so, because a lot of people, for whatever reason, think that they pay ridiculous amount of money for gasoline. That's not true. We actually have some of the lowest gas prices in the world, yet we have the highest gasoline demand in the world. One of the reasons that's a thing is because of Canadian oil. Thanks for the question, Derek. How can they make so much cash? This is another great question. How can they make so much cash, but enough companies bankrupted that their rigs are being bought and drove the prices up? Because one thing, I don't know, if a lot of people have paid attention to this. So let's look at Chevron. Chevron in the last 3 years has paid $65 billion back to their shareholders. They've given $65 billion back to their shareholders. In 2024, they gave $27 billion back to their shareholders. 6 weeks later, they were laying off 9,000 people. The reason these companies can go bankrupt so quickly is they turn over so much of their profits immediately to their shareholders, and they don't keep much back. Right? Because in this industry, anything can happen, and you got to keep your shareholders happy, right? You got to keep your shareholders happy because, if you've got $10 billion sitting over here, that could go to your shareholders, but you're holding it for whatever reason. And then Donald Trump does something stupid and crashes the global market. Now your shareholders have just lost $10 million, right? So in the energy industry, specifically the oil and gas industry, as of late, and by as of late, I mean last 7-8 years, oil companies are turning that money over to their shareholders very quickly, and they're not holding a lot back. They're rewarding their shareholders. And that's because a lot of people are moving away from investing in fossil fuels. And so they're trying to keep the pool of shareholders that they currently have. A lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions, as part of their climate initiatives have decided to stop investing in oil and gas. And so in order for these companies to limit the damage to their shareholder base, they're rewarding them as quickly as possible and as much as possible, right? They're basically handing all the money to the shareholders. Thank you for the question. But that's why. That's why in the oil and gas industry, a company can make $1 billion 1 year and go bankrupt the next, because they hand those profits to their shareholders as quickly as possible. Fascinating, huh? Will, huh?
I said it is fascinating.
You didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't.
After all this time, there's still things you don't know.
Yes.
If you're on the live on TikTok, please do me a solid. Go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to me there. I am slowly migrating to YouTube. The app's going down, folks. I'm telling you, that app is going away. If you want to continue to see me, please go give me a follow on YouTube.
And this is his YouTube account.
Karen says 140,000 EVs were sold in the first 3 quarters in Canada. I don't keep up with Canadian EV sales. I'm assuming that's decent for Canada. I'm honestly not sure. I can tell you what we sell here in the U.S. That's kind of what I keep an eye. I don't really pay much attention to EVs in Canada. I feel like that's a decent number, though. Countries are hoarding gold all over the place. Yes, they are. Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, people do not understand. Great question here from Nelson. What impact will Nigerian refinery have on the market as the volume grows? You know, one thing about Nigeria, there's OPEC nations that you kind of have to, they're very unstable, right? Nigeria has a lot of security issues, and so I never bet on Nigeria. Like if it, there's typically more bad news than good out of Nigeria, and they have a very hard time sustaining anything. And pirates literally steal their shit, like they steal their oil. That's so we'll have to see about Nigeria. You know, Nigeria is one of those countries that the other OPEC nations are constantly having to increase their production because their oil keeps getting stolen. Yeah. Do the presidents beg OPEC to change production because they are state controlled? Yes. 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 100%. 100%. And they control, between OPEC and OPEC Plus, they control roughly 60, I think it's 60% of the global oil market. You said that rig capacity is at 74%, and that globally, or is that globally or locally, and how much can the price decrease by adding rigs? The 74% utilization rate is in the United States. That's not globally. That's in the United States. Hi, Rusty. Thanks for coming in. Private equity companies want their investment dollars back very quickly. And, you know, Rusty's touching on what I was talking about, oil companies returning so much cash to shareholders so quickly. And that, so I'm telling you, $1 billion oil company can be broke in a year because they don't hold on to their cash. They have shareholders to return it to. And if they want to keep those shareholders, they have to keep returning it to them. Thank you, Chris. Already subbed to your YouTube. Thank you, old hand. What does the oil industry expect the percentage of alternative or green energy will supply by 2040? By 2040. '2040 is a weird year because we usually look at either 2030 or 2050. By 2040, they're probably expecting total energy production in the United States from renewables by 2040, probably looking, 30% range. I'm not sure. That was pre Donald Trump election, and I'm not sure how this administration is going to impact that. Donald Trump is going to say a lot of horrible things about renewables, but the last time he was president, renewables grew at a record pace. So you can't look at what he says. You have to look at what happens, just like everything else. Don't look at what he says, look at what happens. Brian's not going to be here in 2040, he says. What year is it? Wait, that's 15. I hope I'm still here. I should be here. I should be here. Thank you, Juan. Yeah, lowering oil prices it sets us up for future high prices. And I've told people this 1,000 times. On a long enough timeline, you're going to pay the exact same amount of price for gasoline. Sometimes you're going to pay $4, sometimes you're going to pay $2, and over a long enough timeline, you're going to pay $3 on average over a 10, 15, 20-year timeline. You just are. You're going to pay $3. And there's going to be times where you think it's great, I'm only paying $2. Every month that you're paying $2 is at least a month you're going to be paying $4 later. It all averages out over a long enough timeline. When you lower prices and crash the market, it causes damage to our infrastructure. It causes damage to our investments. It causes damage for our ability to produce. And as soon as everything crashes, OPEC cuts production and raises prices back up. This has happened time and time and time again. There is no scenario where we sustain gas prices over a long period of time at under $3 a gallon on a national average. It's not a thing. It's absolutely not a thing. On a long enough timeline, you're going to pay that $3. You just are. Mark, thank you so much. $5 super chat. Do you think OPEC Plus will go through with the supply increase for April or hold supply levels? I think they will hold supply levels. They've been holding these supply levels for a long time. They came out this morning. It was either last night or this morning. They came out and hinted as such that they're going to likely maintain supply levels, and that's why oil is up like 1% today, right? Because OPEC is saying we're probably going to hold the supply level, and I think they will. I think they will, absolutely. And just to remind everyone, the production increases that OPEC is talking about for April, that is restoring oil production from oil production cuts that they made in 2022, 2023, early 2023. Early 2020, no. Actually, I think it was October 2022 is when it was. They started cutting production again. And so what they're talking about is easing back into those late 2022 production levels, and they keep putting it off because demand has not returned. So I think when we see demand pick up from Asia, China, India, at some point, once they see a signal that demand is returning, they will restore those production cuts. But it's not. I don't believe at all that it's going to be in April. Scott, thank you for the comment, Scott. I don't think we will ever see $2 or lower price anymore. My opinion is that price will go up over time. Price will absolutely go up over time. And keep in mind, for us to go below $2 on a national average, it took a global pandemic. The national average price for gasoline under Donald Trump, it only went below $2 because of COVID. And it got down to like $1.87, and that was very brief. It took literally nobody driving anywhere for that to occur. And so I don't know what you call that. I don't know if you call that a 100-year pandemic, a 200-year pandemic, whatever you call that. That's what it took to get gas prices that low. So I agree, Scott. Unless there is a total economic collapse, more than just in the United States, but we're talking globally, you need a global economic collapse to get gas prices below $2 a gallon. And Donald Trump is telling you that he's going to get it to $1.50. It's not a thing. What hypothetical scenario will EV and new battery technology cause concern for oil companies? I think the largest concern oil companies had was the new EPA emission standards that the Biden administration implemented, which was essentially an EV mandate. Because the emission standards were so stringent that it was almost like an EV mandate. Roughly 70% of the vehicles in the United States, new vehicles produced, were going to have to be EVs for us to meet those emission standards. That was their biggest concern, and that's gone. That's gone. So now a market is going to determine. The market's going to determine how quickly EVs take their place in the United States. And at the current rate they're going, it's going to be, I'll be dead. At the current rate they're going, I will be dead when EVs start having a big impact on either the climate or pricing. If every single new car sold in the United States starting today was an EV, it would be like 15 years before half the cars in the United States were EVs. And right now, I believe about one in 15 or 16 new cars is an EV. If every single one of those 16 million cars was an EV, it would be 15 years before half the cars were EVs. This is a huge thing. There's a lot of cars in the United States. You don't just do this shit overnight, right? Is ethanol clean or green energy? No. I mean, it's kind of sold as that, but it's really not. It's really not. It's just not, You create a ton of emissions growing corn. a ton. And then, you know, the ethanol itself is still pollutes. Like it's not like hydrogen, right? Ethanol is better for pricing than it is as a, you know, so-called environmental thing. It's actually a pricing thing, and it's so subsidized. I don't know. I don't know if we ever get our money's worth out of ethanol. What do you think, Jill?
I don't know what to think.
Jill,
Yes.
what do you think my mic stand is made out of?
Well, I know that it's probably made out of oil. It probably has it in it, yes.
It's not that complicated.
But it's plastic, right?
It's a Yeti. My mic sits on a Yeti.
Oh, your mic stand is on a Yeti?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's smart.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is so versatile. And then I use this one to drink from.
Yeah, I know. So the one the mic's sitting on is the one I have. That type.
Yeah. Brian wants a hydrogen powered car. Do you want a hydrogen powered electric car or do you want a hydrogen powered car? Is the Yeti made of oil? Yes. Yes. Spooner says it's made out of Bob's tears.
I mean, the Yeti would keep them tears warm, right?
You got to have somewhere to buy hydrogen. Unless you can make it. Yes, everything. Everything. 6,000. 6,000 products that we use every day are made out of oil. Oil from the Keystone, Pennsylvania pipeline. Keystone, Pennsylvania pipeline.
Yes, that Pennsylvania Keystone Pipeline.
I wonder if I can get Bob in here one day.
Why don't you send him a request? Oh,
I sent him a message. Bob, just come hang out with me.
is anybody in here mutuals with Bob? Can you share the live with him, please?
Working on a peace deal with Bob. I'm getting tired of making him look dumb the way I'm doing it. So I want to make him look dumb without him knowing it.
That's a good idea. Hi, Heather.
Just bring him on here and let him talk. Like, yeah, Bob. There's an 8,000 horsepower EV drift car. Wow. I did not know that. Has Trump shut down OSHA yet? If so, does that affect the oil business? I haven't heard. I don't think so, or I would have heard. But yeah, it'll impact industries for sure. Yes, the Keystone Pipeline does bring Keystone beer to the United States. That's exactly what it does.
Yes, the Pennsylvania Keystone beer.
Who is Bob and why are his tears so versatile you can make a Yeti mug with it? Bob is in my content. Bob is quite a character. Is Alaska still heavily reliant on oil sales to keep their economy running? Absolutely. And oil production in Alaska has dropped by, I believe, more than half in the last 20 years. It's dropped significantly. But yes, they do. I miss my 90s Escorts. I owned 19 of them. Thomas says he wants beer stamps. What is that, like food stamps but beer stamps? What comments and why made you cringe the most related to the oil industry made by the current administration? Yes, those were Ford Escorts, not Escorts. I think all of it, honestly, there's everything is a complete fabrication. There's nothing. When Donald Trump speaks about the oil and gas industry in the United States, there is absolutely nothing he says that is remotely based in reality in any way, shape, or form. So it's not that there's anything or worse or better or like, it's just all so crazy. So he's either completely detached from reality or he's just entirely full of shit. I don't know which one it is. Could it be both? It could. It could be both. It could. Who knows? I don't guess I remember beer cards. I don't guess I remember that. I mean, now I've gotten beer cards in places where they limit the amount of beer you can have, and every time you go buy one, they punch a card, and then once you drink so much, you're cut off. I've seen those, mostly at casinos. Thank you, Floridian. Hi, King Arthur. I'm good. What state has the most refineries? You think Texas? I believe it's Texas. California's got a lot too, but they've lost a lot too. But thank you, Kool-Aid. Thank you very much. It would have been crucial for Democrats to have brought up Trump's OPEC 2020 deal. Well, they couldn't bring it up during the campaign. They could not bring it up during the campaign. Thank you, Spooner. I appreciate that. Are you in Kentucky, Mr. Global? No, I'm not in Kentucky. Houston is the corporate center of oil, 90 miles of channel to access the ocean. Yes, the Houston Ship Channel. I've been invited to be a keynote speaker at the Houston Ship Channel in September. I haven't accepted that offer yet. Yes, they would have had to have brought that up in 2022. Hi, Jonah. I'm good. How are you? Max says he's wondering about an article about California government wanting to take over refineries. I haven't heard anything about that. If the California government takes over the refineries, who are they going to blame? Who are they going to blame? What country is most dependent on imported oil? China and India are the countries that are the most dependent on imported oil, and that is because they don't produce much oil, so they're extremely reliant on what they do import. India actually imports more oil than no, actually we import slightly more than India, but we also export a massive amount of oil too. So, that means we're less reliant on our imports, and we're actually importing and exporting more for profit instead of need. China and India import for need, right? Because they can't do without it. So you can't just look at the import numbers. You have to look at the whole picture. And China and India are, as far as just volume of imports, are very reliant on oil imports. Can Trump declaring a national energy emergency force drilling for oil on federal lands? No. No, he cannot. Rick says, in your last live, you said natural gas was up, and I got a bill today, and it went up 28 cents per therm last month and 32 cents per therm this month. Yeah. PL says, dependency is really related to how much you have versus how much you use. That is correct, 100%. Article is in the LA Times. I don't read the LA Times. But I have to look at that. That would make a good piece of content. California trying to take over refineries. When LNG is stored underground, does it lose its LNG properties? Natural gas is stored underground, not liquefied natural gas. LNG has to be cooled constantly. Like you can't cool it and then just walk away from it, right? It has to be constantly cooled. That would not be the brightest thing for California to do. No, it wouldn't. My guess is they're not. California doesn't want to take over existing operating refineries. My guess is they want to take over some of the ones that have closed down because so many people are leaving town, right? The refineries are closing in California because they don't want to operate in that state. So if I had to guess, they're probably thinking about buying some closed refineries. What is your opinion on the supposed new refinery being built in Texas? The only refinery that I was aware that was being built in Texas is now open. So unless there's talks of another one, what would be the impact if Canada stopped selling oil to the United States? Canada does not sell oil to the United States. That's not a thing. Canada does not sell oil to the United States. Companies on the other side of an imaginary line sell oil to companies on the other side of that imaginary line. Those companies are not going to stop selling oil on their side of the line to the companies on the other side of the line. That's not a thing. And the reason I stress that it's companies doing business is because so many people, and I don't know why, so many people believe that Canada, like the country, is selling oil to United States, the country. That's not a thing. It's companies doing business with companies, and the government, what's going on between the governments, that's for the governments to worry about, right? Not that the companies aren't worried, but they're certainly not just going to stop selling their product and go bankrupt because the governments are fighting, right? PL says nothing in the refinery is 120 years old. Thank you, Goddess Die. Yeah, that's true. Nothing in the refinery is 120 years old. Yeah, that's a little refinery. 160,000 barrels. That's about the same size as the refinery in Martinez, California. Do I think solar panels are a good investment for your home? That depends on a lot of things. That depends on the first thing it depends on is how much are they? How much money are you going to save? How long does it take you to get your money back? And all of those things, right? Do you have a lot of trees around your house? Is it sunny where you live? Do you live in the north? Do you live in the south? I'm not going to say, but the return on investment for solar panels varies greatly around the country depending on where you live, and the cost of them where you live, the permitting, whatever you have to go through to get them installed. A lot of those are local regulations, and sometimes they're super easy, and sometimes they're just tenuous and just overbearing. So I would put a pen and paper to it and do the math. And yeah, where you live relative to the sun. It's funny, but it's actually true. It's actually true. In Oklahoma, we ran a lot of the solar companies out of the state because they were scamming people. They were scamming people. So you got to be careful with who you're doing business to as well. Make sure you have a good company that has a very strong reputation. If someone comes and knocks on your door trying to sell you solar panels, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it's a little bit of a red flag. You want to look at that company, right? Another thing to consider is, are you going to keep that house forever? If you have solar panels on that house and if you owe money on them, or you may be paying cash for them, or you may be financing them. If you have solar panels on that house and you financed them, they're probably going to have to come down if you decide to sell the house. So there's a lot of things to consider, with solar panels. Jill, do you have solar panels?
No, I do not.
My uncle HR, who's about, I don't know, 90, 85, 90, I don't know. He's old, right? They lived on a farm their whole life. They just moved to town. They bought a house in town. And I was over at his house, and he said, I want you to look at my electric bill. I think something's wrong with it. I was like, well, what's wrong with it? He's like, it was only $24. He was worried that they were going to send him a big bill in the future because they underbilled him. I said, dude, you got solar panels. He said, I didn't know they worked. I said, yeah, they work. You got solar panels.
I mean, my area would be probably work fine for solar panels, right? Because there's not a lot of trees near my house.
Yeah, so like if you live in Seattle, do you want solar panels if you live in Seattle? I mean, it fucking rains every day. It's cloudy every day, right?
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, Pennsylvania has been turning into that as well. So, today would be a lovely day for solar panels, though. The sun is shining really bright. Somebody said there is solar panels there.
Well, I'm sure there are, but, they're not extremely efficient. They probably have a lot of incentives in that state for people to get solar panels.
Yeah.
And in places like Washington, prices for electricity are very expensive. So,
Yes.
they wouldn't have to help as much to have a much larger impact on your cost.
So, our electric bill's pretty high. I would like to have a, $24 electric bill.
Well, it's all those gladiator movies.
It is. It is. Not by me, though.
Do you think the Trump administration will implement growth in nuclear power? We actually recently passed a piece of legislation in the last few months of the Biden administration that was designed just for that, to spur growth in nuclear power, to streamline permitting, more modular reactors, things like that. So that legislation has been passed. That legislation did have a price tag on it with more subsidies for nuclear power. So it had a price tag on it. So, we'll have to see what happens with all these cuts and everything going on. See if it survives. Scott says Minnesota is not the greatest place for solar panels either. Huh. I did not know that. My daughter calls my bald spot a solar panel. Well, if that's what that is, I got a big solar panel. Wow, what is that on my head? Oh my God. Thank you for that dragon or whatever that was.
Solar panel on the head. Okay. That's funny. I liked it.
Oh man. Yeah, because I don't have a bald spot. I have a hair spot. That's what I have. I have a hair spot, Jill.
A hair spot.
Yeah, because there's a spot on my head where there's hair. And you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, I do.
St. Lava, thank you for your membership. Solar panels seem to work here in Florida. Well, if I lived in Florida, I'd probably have solar panels too. I've actually considered getting some solar here at my house, but I need to replace my roof first. I got, I don't know, probably 20 years on my roof, and I don't want to stick solar panels on top of bad shingles, which they're not. It's not like in dire need to be replaced right now, but it is going to need to be replaced. So. What is the future of oil and gas in West Virginia? It's good. It's good. West Virginia produces a lot of natural gas. Natural gas demand is set to rise roughly 4% a year, which is a really high number over the next few years. So there's a ton of demand coming on. We're exporting a ton of gas. West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, those areas that produce a lot of oil and gas, mostly natural gas in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, a lot of oil in Ohio with their natural gas. It's going to be good. It's going to be good in West Virginia. Couple of feet of snow on my roof, not great for solar. No. Thank you, Xer.
So I have a question then.
Okay.
Doesn't the solar panels heat up to melt the snow?
Huh?
Does the solar panels heat up to melt the snow?
Well, not likely if the snow's on top of them. I mean, wouldn't they need to be exposed to the sun to heat up?
I don't know. Gary says yes. That's why I asked, because I didn't know.
He's saying yes to me, not to you.
That's what I said. He's saying yes to you. Yeah. No, I know he's saying yes to you. I was asking because I did not know. I have, I am willing to learn.
Surely they have something to help, with solar panels getting snow on them. They probably have something you can buy that attaches or that like sweeps the snow off of it itself, maybe.
I have no idea. Yeah, like a floor heat, right? That's what they should have, like a floor heat. Yes. I mean, in today's
Oh, man. Hope that was watermelon.
Right?
Hi, preacher from Nebraska. How are you? Yes, Francine, it was a good question. Hi, Lori. Thank you for coming in. I think we're doing good.
Hi, Lori.
We live in northern Ontario. My son is completely off grid. He goes out and shovels it off. Ah, thank you, Kool-Aid. You have that feral Gen X energy. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, totally a thing. I agree. Is Mr. Global TTOU? No, that is not me. That is a copycat.
And there are lots of them. The only counts he has is this one here and Mr. Global 2.0. That's it, no other.
Thank you. Time to start again. Mr. Global, I worked in West Texas oil field in 2010. What drilling advances make the U.S. able to drill more with less rigs? Is the technology downhole? Yeah, so we can drill faster, right? Better downhole motors, better bits, and we can go deeper. We're drilling 3 mile laterals pretty regularly now. We weren't doing that in 2010. Matter of fact, in 2010, we weren't even drilling 2 mile laterals yet. We were pretty much right there at a mile. So 3 mile lateral, compared to a 1 mile, you're basically getting the production of 3 wells out of one, right? And so, in addition to that, just the speed at which they can drill now has increased exponentially. They're drilling these wells in 2 weeks, 14, 16, 20 days at the most. But they drill a lot of them in about 2 weeks. And in addition to that, we have new technology and fracking. We have, dual fracks and simul fracks and all kinds of stuff. So the process has sped up greatly. But what that means is people are going to run out of work a lot quicker, too. People are going to run out of work a lot quicker. How high do I think gas prices are going to be by summer? Keep in mind, Lori, when I talk about gas prices, I talk about on a national average. Around 350, maybe as high as 360 a gallon on a national average. If you live in the Midwest or the South, it's going to be less than that because those states, gas prices, typically average at least 20, 30 cents below the national average. If you live on the East Coast, West Coast, North, East, Northwest, if you live in Arizona, If you live in Pennsylvania, if you live in any of those places, it's going to be more than the national average. So, I think we're already seeing gas, $5 gas in California pretty regularly. I haven't looked at the state's average this week, but gas prices are going through the roof in California. Yeah, gas is going to be expensive in California. Especially the longer that Martinez refinery is down, the worse it's going to be. And still don't know the extent of the damage there. But gas is about to get crazy in California again. Jacob says he paid $5.60 today in San Diego. Donald Trump, he did point out that's for premium. Donald Trump, I heard Donald Trump changed the name of the Gulf to get around Biden's order. No, that's not a thing. He didn't change the name to get around an order. First of all, the order didn't stop any drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, for one. It stopped absolutely nothing. The only place in the Gulf that was banned was a continuation of a ban that Donald Trump himself supported and continued himself, and that Obama continued. So the portion of the ban that's in the Gulf of Mexico is in an area where we don't drill anyway. That's Joe Biden did that a lot. Joe Biden restricted areas where we don't drill to begin with, to make his base happy, to make the environmental lobby happy, to make the climate lobby happy. But most of the things he did, no impact on drilling in the United States, none at all whatsoever. That is correct. Continue not doing what you're not doing. Continue not allowing you to do what we didn't allow you to do before, right? I don't remember how many decades that ban had been in place in the Gulf of Mexico. It's been a long time. Just like the ban off the coast, Southern California. There's been a ban off the coast of Southern California for over 40 years, but they're still drilling there occasionally because the companies still hold the leases, because the ban isn't on drilling. The ban is actually on issuing new leases. So it's nothing. It's all politics. It's all a bunch of stuff to get people stirred up. It's all people like placating to their bases, but none of what Joe Biden did, none of what Donald Trump is doing is going to have any actual impact whatsoever on gas prices, on drilling, on anything. There's nothing at all tangible that is going to come out of any of this in any way. It's basically a bunch of bullshit. It's a huge con. It's a huge con. That's all it is. If you're on TikTok Live, do me a solid. Please go follow me on YouTube. Go to YouTube and just search Mr. Global, and you will find me. I think I'm the top search result there. Roger, thank you for your question. Roger says, explain it to me like I'm 5. Is this fracking revolution limited? Like in 20 years, this kind of oil and gas pumping will be over, or is it like peak oil, which means it will go on indefinitely? It's a little bit of both. Fracking will continue as long as it's economically viable to continue. And, right now it looks really good. The economics look really good. And so I expect it to continue for a very long time, because we are finding other ways to sort of accessorize the fracking, like drilling longer lateral sections, drilling deeper wells. When you put that with the fracking and you get much more production, you save a lot more money. So a lot of the other technology advances are keeping, fracking at the total spend and the total production. It's keeping that in a place where it's actually improving the cost basis. So I don't want to say it's not limited, because there will be a day down the road. But it's sort of a little bit of both. Like, it's going to be around for a very long time, a very long time. Thank you, Danny. But it's not something that's going to disappear in a few years, right? That's not a thing. Brian wants to know, is fracking even necessary? It's absolutely necessary. It is as necessary as drilling the well itself. The fracking is as necessary as drilling the well itself. As a matter of fact, a lot of people probably don't know this. The fracking, the completion of the well, is more expensive than the drilling of the well. The fracking of the well is more expensive than the drilling of the well. Thank you, Luckstone. PL says fracking economics is not all that good. That's why investors have lost so much money. Their survivors buy in cheap. So fracking economics, the thing about the economics in fracking is you need to be in a very good spot. You need to have a very high certainty of good, solid production, because of those economics. As long as you get the results that you are trying to get by fracking, it's perfectly fine from an economics perspective. But you often don't get those results, and so it does add a significant amount of risk. But you can't produce those wells at all if you don't frack them. It's not a thing. You just can't. Is synthetic oil a thing? Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, it's totally a thing. Hello, Daria. Why did fracking get named fracking? Because you're actually fracturing. fracturing. And fracking was adopted as sort of like an abbreviated, even though technically it's not really an abbreviation. But it's hydraulic fracturing. And so they just called it fracking. Will gas be cheaper in Mexico this year than the USA? I don't know. Gas prices. Well, I don't know. Most people don't know. Gas prices have fallen quite a bit in Mexico, but I don't know that they'll be cheaper than the United States. They could be. My guess is to be about the same, but we'll have to see how far they fall. A Delta flight has flipped upside down after landing in Toronto. 8 injuries reported. Flipped upside down, huh? How will approval of new LNG exports affect the oil and gas industry? It's going to be really good for natural gas producers. It's going to be really good for natural, and it's also going to be good for oil producers because they also produce natural gas. But it's going to be best for natural gas producers. It's going to be really good for midstream companies. Yeah, it's going to be good. Fracking used to be with a grenade. Yes. And if you want to read, matter of fact, I think I'll save that. I was about to tell you something. I'm gonna save that for tomorrow's show. Fascinating story about fracking back in the day. Lori with $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we'll talk about Operation Gas Buggy. Tomorrow. That'll be a great historical thing to talk about when it comes to fracking. What is fracking? So fracking is injecting water and sand into geologic formations deep under the earth where the rock is very tight, and it fractures the rocks and increases the overall permeability of the rock. Permeability is the ability of fluid to flow through rocks. So rocks are porous. They have pores. And once they're fracked, they have fractures in them. You basically break the rock under an extreme amount of pressure. And that unlocks a lot of the hydrocarbons trapped in the rock. The sand is a proppant. So the sand, goes into the rock, into the fractures, into the pores, and packs it. And it keeps those fractures propped open, right? If you want to know what oil looks like flowing through rock, imagine water. Imagine the tide coming in up on a beach and the water just disappearing into the sand because the water's like flowing basically through that sand. That's kind of what it looks like when you have oil flowing through rock 10,000 feet below the surface of the earth, right? But that oil is under a great deal of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure trapped in the reservoir. So it's much faster than that. But that's kind of a good example of what it looks like. Do you need to pump the same amount of liquid and sand down the well to extract the same amount of oil? That depends. That depends on a lot of things. So well spacing is very important. So, if you're in a place like West Texas, well spacing is because the wells are so close together. So if you have another well within 1,000 feet of you, then you need to design your frac where you create a frac envelope that does not go into the next, basically what the next wellbore is producing from, right? So you can actually design your fracs as far as an area within the geology that they cover. And typically, assuming there's no restrictions or otherwise or other things that could impact your fracture, typically the larger the frac, the better. Typically, as long as you're fracking into fresh rock. Why don't oil companies tell politicians to fuck off, hold back all political contributions to force them to stay out of your business? Most oil companies, the vast majority of oil companies in the United States, don't give any money to politicians. Can you explain why people are angry in Alberta when it comes to oil? Not really. I don't know why they're angry in Alberta. There's angry people everywhere, you know.
So there are angry people everywhere, angry people like Charlie. So Charles down in the chat came into my live last night and started trouble because he was in this live and was mad at people from getting muted here. Then he came back today and was complaining, so I put him in timeout, and he came back again and I blocked him. So Charlie is probably crying right now because that's all he knows how to do.
Is Charlie the guy that you went to the other live and they threw him out of that one too, or was that someone else?
No, Charlie, I think that was someone else. Charlie
okay.
came to my live last night and was complaining.
Was I there or was I already gone?
No, it was after you left, Jess.
Oh.
But Charlie got blocked in my live last night, and then Charlie just now got blocked in yours by me. He thought he was angry about being muted.
Oh, Charlie. Lorianne, thank you for your support and for watching my content. I'm glad I can make you laugh occasionally. Your video about porosity was great. We had a similar demo when I studied hydrogeology while getting my undergrad. Thank you, Scott. One sentiment that always gets stated by Alberta is that they carry the country because of oil and that we should all be grateful. So they think everyone should be grateful for them. Okay. I mean, can't they just be grateful they have good, high-paying jobs? Why do they have to be pissed off at everybody else? Because out of some sense that they should be recognized because they go to work and do a job. Chevron moves to boost Venezuela oil exports amid U.S. policy shift. Thoughts? We'll have to see how that works with Donald Trump. He's taken a very hard stance against Venezuela, but he also has been running his mouth incessantly about how he's going to bring down oil prices. So we'll have to see if he uses Venezuela to do that. If he Good afternoon, Sandra. Hello, Blanca. Social media has made people angrier. If I leave a comment, it's usually positive because it's not worth getting angry. I'm too old to get angry. I rather laugh. Laughing is good for the soul. Yeah, social media has made people angrier. My sense is that tied to people that are angry and think others should be grateful for them existing, my sense is that those people vote a certain way. I tried sharing information you taught me to a diehard MAGA lady, and she said she'd rather not hear from experts, just those that Trump trust. Well, I mean, Trump would trust me if I would kiss his ass, you know. Trump doesn't trust people based on their ability or capacity to be trusted. He trusts people based on their ability or capacity to kiss his ass. That's you know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do with what they know. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining from TikTok. Can you tell us about the types of oil? West Texas, sweet, sour. So, West Texas mostly produces a lot of light, sweet oil. Light oil has a higher specific gravity. Heavy oil has a lower specific gravity. And basically it's lighter because it weighs less, right? It's heavier because it weighs more. You have light, sweet, you have light, sour, you have medium, sweet and sour, you have heavy, sweet and sour, and the sweet and sour is basically the chemical makeup of the oil. And that could sort of describe how toxic it is, how much sulfur it has in it, how poisonous it is. There's a lot of things. But different types of oil were created in different geologic structures in different periods of time in history when the sort of recipe on the ground and in the atmosphere had changed. How much carbon was present in the atmosphere, what type of vegetation existed on the ground, what was in the soil. All of those things go into what ultimately creates either, say, a light oil or a heavy oil. It all goes back to basically the raw material that was present at the time to create that. And then in addition to that, what were the current status of sort of the climate of the earth, right? And how all that got compacted and covered up, and then how many millions of years it has existed. Thank you, Violet. You folks on TikTok, please do me a solid. Go follow me on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube right now. Look up Mr. Global on YouTube and you can find me there. I am slowly migrating my people and content to YouTube because TikTok is going away.
So the chat is slower in TikTok as well. So if you think your question's getting looked over by, just because of all the comments, head over to TikTok. I mean YouTube. Sorry, I said TikTok. Head over to YouTube because the chat is slower.
Why did Elon ban you on X? I didn't see any videos after the election and thought somebody had whacked you. Elon did not ban me. Nobody banned me. I left because it was just a cesspool. Like X is like the National Enquirer, like it's tabloid social media. And all I was doing was going over there long enough to post stuff and then leaving. Like I never looked at it. You know, I couldn't look at it. It was a collection of the dumbest fucking people on earth. I had no interest in looking at that stupidity. I see enough stupidity on fucking TikTok. So I got tired of it and left, you know. It just a conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory. Yeah, I made a lot of contacts on X. You know, a lot of the media was there. There was a lot of people there. That's where I was sort of discovered by Mark Cuban. He started sharing all of my content. You know, Carl Quintanilla from CNBC, some of those people. So there was like good things that came from me being on X, but I wasn't willing to deal with that bullshit just to have a different group of people sharing my content. It wasn't worth it to me. I didn't really care about that. I was just downsized from Shell 2 weeks ago after 12 years, but Trump okay. Thanks, Trump. It's always funny when I find a small YouTuber, but then it turns out they were on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram blowing up. Yeah, I've really only been focusing more on YouTube for maybe the last month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. I don't know. It hadn't been very long. So I think the vast majority of my following on YouTube's been in the last 60 days. I had a YouTube account for a long time, but I never posted on it. Man, a lot of comments of people getting downsized on TikTok. Thank you for coming in, Gloria, or Glorious. Texas back, Substack. Yes, I am on Substack. I am. Just look for Mr. Global. You can find me there. What do you think is going to happen to TikTok? I think it's going to go away. I think it's going to go away. And that is because, the Republicans in Congress are, regardless of what Donald Trump thinks, the Republicans in Congress are still adamant that it has to go, and they will not change their mind. And so they don't want to sell. They're not going to sell. And I think it's inevitable. And the thing is, even if it survives, the app won't be the same. It won't be the same app if it survives, because the algorithm will be gone. I truly believe Elon is an alien. I think that's why he has so many children, spawning a new species. Well, it wouldn't be the craziest thing I've heard today. Hi, Pete. My coworker is a grower for the state of Vermont. Cost him $250,000 to get started. He should have came to Oklahoma. Hi, Jim. He should have came to Oklahoma. You can do that in Oklahoma for $2,000. Am I a Chiefs fan? No, I'm not. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I rooted for the Eagles. I had to go nab on the Eagles this year.
Yeah, go Birds. Or go Eagles.
I mean, Jalen Hurts played for Oklahoma, right? I don't want to spread misinformation here, so I'll ask you. I have seen a video that Europe signed a deal with Canada for LNG and oil in place of getting it from the United States. Is that true? No, that is not true. And the reason I know it's that true, I know it's not true, is because Canada doesn't. Canada doesn't have a fraction of the amount of LNG that Europe needs. So, they may sell, the companies in Canada may sell some to Europe, companies in Europe, but certainly not in place of the USA. Now, things like this, though, when it does work, we could start to see some of these things actually happen in the future with this road that Donald Trump is going down. And when his decisions start impacting his big donors, I think we will see a different approach. MD Smith says, we're going to become obsolete. And thank you for that question, Rustlin V, by the way. Yeah, he's doing a lot of things to make countries not want to do business with the United States, and that's not exactly a great way to make us all rich. As he continually says, we're going to be rich. Perry says, I'm 65, somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s, gas got to under $1 in Reagan's time. How did that happen? No one ever thought it was possible. It was brief, however. I live in Georgia. I believe you're talking about the Reagan recession. So, we had a huge oil boom in the United States. Oil prices were really high. That last couple of years or so of the Carter administration, first part of the Reagan administration, and that kind of came from the oil embargo. And once all that sort of ended, I think it was in the late part of the year in Reagan's second year. I think it was 82. I think it was 1982. Oil prices, gas prices started crashing. We had a massive global oil crash. And, in the United States, before that crash, we had over 4,000 rigs operating. And I remember this very well because I was a kid, and where I lived, activity in the industry was very high. There was rigs out here everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing 25 rigs off in the distance, and everything just disappeared. Everybody went broke. There was bankruptcies everywhere. People were losing everything, and so that was a very bad crash. I'm pretty sure that was 1982. I'm just going off memory, but yeah, so gas did get below $1. Thank you, Valley Dude. Isaac says, similar to the 2018 crash. Well, the thing was, we never recovered really from that crash. You know, the entire Reagan administration, the entire Clinton administration, or the entire Reagan, the Bush, Daddy Bush, Bush Senior. It might have been 1983. Clinton. Like, we went through 2 more presidents after Reagan before we saw a big increase in activity in the United States. We saw that under George W. Bush. We just kind of got into this mode of importing oil, and oil prices was never came back to a level where we could really get going. I mean, we were doing some drilling, but it was slow for like damn near 20 years. It was just slow for damn near 20 years. Like, it was slow for a really long time. You had to go somewhere. So if you're on the TikTok live, please do me a favor. Go follow me on YouTube. I am currently streaming on YouTube, trying to push people that direction. Thank you so much. Jill?
Yes.
We went over an hour.
I know, I told you you would.
Huh?
I told you you would. Didn't I tell you?
You probably did. I'm sure you did.
I said, are you really going to cut it to an hour?
I remember going to the store to buy my dad cigarettes. Yeah, I did that too. I got them out of the machine or the store. And I remember that I was little enough, like I was young enough, and I was little enough that when I bought cigarettes for my mom out of that machine, I would have to bend my knees and grab a hold of that handle, because you had to pull it out, and it was real hard to pull out. And I would basically have to lean back and just put all my weight into it to pull that damn thing, because I wasn't strong enough. Like, I was like 4 and I was buying fucking cigarettes.
I did the same thing. So watch the pinch, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that handle would pinch you when it went back in. It would catch the little skin on the side of your finger.
Or sometimes out between your finger and your thumb there, and that right there.
Did you ever write a book on the oil and gas industry? I actually worked on that, and then I stopped. I think I'm going to go ahead and start again. I need to finish that. Would you ever do YouTube collaborations? Yeah, I will. I got some planned, actually. Bama Forever says, no one reads books anymore. There's definitely some truth to that. People don't read like they used to.
I'm interrupting you, talking right over you.
Go ahead.
I was agreeing with you, but I just read two of his books, so there's that.
My dad had cigarettes in the house. My mom had a sign by the cigarettes. These cigarettes were purchased by and for your dad. If you cannot afford the habit, quit. I have 4 older brothers. Where do you see gas prices going in the next few months? I see them going up. They're going to go up for the next few months. And then about the end of July, they'll start falling. After July 4th holiday, probably a couple of weeks after July 4th holiday, they'll start dropping a little bit.
So I was going to tell him that Global likes to keep me away from the mic so you can't hear me. But I'm actually kidding. I will try to talk louder.
I turned it all the way up, so you don't need to talk any louder. Just talk in your normal voice.
So you just don't want me yelling?
No, I turned my phone all the way up
I know, I'm just kidding.
when I read that comment. She's actually in a different live, so it's going to sound, you know. Do you have any recommendations for reading on the oil and gas industry? I would recommend The Prize by Daniel Yergin. They've got it on audiobook. All right, everyone. Well, I think I'm going to shut it down. I got stuff to do. Jill's probably got stuff to do.
Yes, I'm going to start dinner. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming in and spending time with us today. Appreciate your time and support, and for showing up. I will see you guys soon. Thank you very much.